Good afternoon. Welcome to Is It Really Worth It?
Hello.
We are here this afternoon with the legend Claire Reilly. Intercontinental 57 kilo Muay Thai world champion.
Yep.
And currently the head female coach at BST in Northampton.
Yeah, that's
Pretty good achievements.
Yeah, I guess.
Pretty good achievements.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't see it like that, but people say that to me, yeah, so it's good.
Right, we'll start from the beginning. Birthplace.
Bletchley. Good
Okay.
Bletchley, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, proud to be from Bletchley.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Year?
I was born in 1973, although I tell people 1983 probably. But yeah, I loved my childhood. I had a brilliant childhood. Grew up in West Bletchley. Never in, always out.
Always out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
always out
Yeah.
with my friends. Just had to come in when it got dark.
Street lights going off.
Street lights coming, or when my dad whistled.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had the loudest whistle. So
Yeah.
as soon as we had my dad whistle, we knew we had to come in. But yeah, it was good. I
Yeah.
had a really good childhood.
Great. And big family?
No, I've got two brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, both older than me. So the road that I grew up in, I was probably the only girl actually, which I think has stead for my whole life. I'm always, all my jobs and everything has always been in a male-dominated area. But I think that's from probably growing up with all the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, schools?
Lord Grey was my first school was Castles, which is no longer there, unfortunately. And then Alex Campbell Middle School. And then Lord Grey was my last school. Yeah.
So, when did you start being interested in contact sports?
Well, my introduction into sports was gymnastics when I was 3. I did gymnastics up until I was 10 years old. And gymnastics is brutal.
Yeah.
I'll probably say, out of all the sports, even Thai boxing, gymnastics is probably one of the brutalist sports that you can do because you push your body to complete limits, Even as a youngster, the stuff that they used to make, they can't do this anymore, obviously. But we'd always have to do handstands. If a head was sticking out, the guy would come along and just kick our heads in. Not hard, but, yeah. If we couldn't do the splits, you'd get pushed down into the splits, and it was just quite tough. But it was good. I know it's not like that anymore because it can't be, but I think gymnastics is the best foundation sport to most sports.
Very disciplined.
Very disciplined,
Yeah.
coordination, balance, learning to know how the body moves.
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant... if I had a child, which I don't have children, but if I had a child, I would definitely have got them into gymnastics to start with.
A lot of the CrossFitters now are from gymnastic backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, the strength is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The discipline, like you
Yeah.
said. But
Well, just discipline in everything, really.
yeah.
So, gymnastics went to...
Yeah, and then gymnastics, I went on to swimming. And then I did that for a year or so. That was good. I was quite good at swimming. And then I went into high diving. So that was scary, high diving. But we had a swimming pool. I think I used to do it at Leon, which is another school in Bletchley, and their swimming pool was really deep. I can't remember how deep it was, but it was deep enough that you had a 10-metre, I think it was a 10-metre high diving board. So that was that. And then went on to athletics. So I was good at the high jump and the hurdles.
Yeah.
And then I had a bit of a break because I went to college and everything. And then started the Muay Thai when I was 23. So there's always been some sort of sport going on.
Yeah, but, obviously in that era, a contact sport for young ladies was kind of like frowned upon. It was
It was because in between those, so in between the swimming and the athletics, I'd started karate just at the local community centre, but it was Kyokushin karate, which I didn't know at the time was pretty brutal karate. And
Full contact.
It's full contact, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was 13 at the time, and a lot of, I mean, it's a long time ago now, but I can't remember any other girls being there. So I'd get partnered up with all these big guys, and I would absolutely get covered in bruises. My shins, I just remember my shins. Because you don't wear shin pads in karate,
No.
you know.
So,
not in that anyway.
The karate was in between swimming and...
Yeah, I started the karate, and my mum was just like, you're getting covered in bruises, so she took me to swimming instead.
So the karate came before the swimming?
Yeah, really, yeah, it did.
Right. And so what made you go back to the karate? You went to university?
I never went back to karate. I went back to Thai boxing. So I went to college. I did art at college for 2 years, and then photography on top of that. So I wasn't doing sports then. I wasn't interested in sports by that time. And then I'd finished my courses and got a job, and I thought I started a gym, just joined a gym just to get back fit and healthy again. And I noticed that they'd started doing Thai boxing classes, and Thai boxing was unheard of really back then.
That's right, Muay Thai, yeah.
You know, you're talking about 97, 98. And there were, you know, I'd never heard of it before, so I thought I'd give this class a go. And the rest is history. And I loved it. I mean, we was lucky because our coach that had started these classes was Lee Hasdale, who bought...
Oh, Lee, yeah.
So I didn't know who Lee was or anything, but he'd brought MMA over into the country.
Into Great Britain, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just lucky that he was the coach at the time. Yeah. So what a class to start into. Good
level to jump straight in the deep end.
Yeah.
So what achievements did you go, and where did that take you?
In the Muay Thai?
In Muay Thai.
So I trained for 3 years before I did any competition, because around that just before that time, about the age of about 18, I'd suffered really badly with panic attacks and anxiety to the point where I couldn't even leave my house at some points. And to go back into a sports and things, it was quite a big thing for me to do, because being around lots of people and everything. I was kind of over it by that time, but it was still quite hard to do, to put myself into that environment. And I'd got in, and I was into my photography at that time, so I'd started taking pictures of live events. This is going into it, it will link in a minute. Yeah. But I worked for Marshalls, the amplifications that have just come
the sound.
And I was their photographer for their live gigs. So they had a magazine called Martial Law, and I was the photographer for that. So I'd started to go out into this environment, and I was kind of getting my confidence back. And then from the classes, the UFC had come over to England. I think it was the first time it had come over to the Royal Albert Hall. And it was UFC 38. That's how long ago it was. And I was photographing it. Managed to get into photographing it. So I'd almost got into the sport so much, but through the photography.
Yeah.
And then I'd got asked to do a fight, and my confidence was a bit better then. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to push myself. So I did one fight 3 years after starting, and loved it.
So, listen, it's contact sport. There's a massive, massive amount of discipline, commitment, dedication, what goes into contact sports.
Yeah. And
a very biased view on females in contact sport, and it still goes on to this day. Yeah. Like we were saying earlier, I was guilty myself, but now I've had a complete turnaround, and I think it's just amazing what these girls are doing at the minute and the talent they've got. But
it's been a long road.
Yeah, well, it's obviously been harder for you, Claire, as it is for all the other girls what have took this choice.
Yeah.
So what kind of difference in commitment and and grit, I suppose. You would have to have a lot more because,
Yeah.
you know, you'll be going into a gym every night full of guys.
Yeah, and that's literally what it was. Yeah, there was hardly any girls doing the sport then.
Yeah. So was your diet disciplined all the time? Was your routine, you know, what kind of, you know, Muay Thai is, I know a lot of Muay Thai guys and a few Muay Thai girls, but what kind of average day would a Muay Thai fighter?
So your sleep was really important.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at the time that I started competing, I think I was about 26, and I was married before that, and I think I was divorced by like 25. So I just started to go out and be independent, and then all of a sudden I decided to fight. So my socialising,
the going out stopped.
Yeah, that stopped.
Yeah.
Socialising was down to a minimum. So the sleep was important, your food was important, training was important twice a day, as well as holding a full-time job. And outside, you know, my friends and my family just could not understand why I was doing it at all, because, you know, it's not a female. Then it wasn't a female sport.
Yeah.
So training, and also Lee Hasdale, who was the coach, was a PT in the army. So the training that we had to do was proper brutal. He really put us through our paces. But, you know, I've never been that fit in my life.
Yeah.
We was the fittest. And Danny Batten, who's the other head coach at BST, we were training together. We were fighting at the same time. We were sparring partners, and both of us have always said that's the fittest that we've ever been.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You know, he really did put us through our paces. But I was the only female. So there was a couple of other girls, but in the fighting team, really.
So would it be similar road work in the morning?
Yeah. So running, we did a lot of our running in the woods.
Yeah.
We had a circuit that we'd do, Brick Hill Woods, and we'd have a backpack with a 20-kilo plate weight in. Yeah. And there was a hill with sand on, so we'd have to do the runs up the hill with the sand. There was also a really long hill, and we'd all be in line. There was about 5 or 6 of us at a time that were doing it.
So you were running in the mornings as a team? As a
team. We always ran as a team. Yeah. And I will say the good thing about Lee is that he did everything with us. He made us do it, but he would lead by example. Perfect.
Yeah. Great coach.
Yeah. So, but one of us would go, 3 seconds later the other one would go, 3 seconds later the other one would go, and we wasn't allowed to be caught.
Yeah.
But you can imagine, I'm the only girl. Some of these guys are like...
Did they send you first?
No, luckily. But I never got put at the back. I was always, you know...
In the middle.
I was always told, you've chosen this sport, you need to train the same as the other guys.
Brilliant.
And I wasn't allowed to be treated any different either. So.
And, you know, proper order, I don't think...
Yeah.
I don't think you would have gained anything if you were.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you're running in the morning.
Yeah.
Food.
Yeah, food was important.
Yeah.
I had to eat the right food. I mean, my nutrition knowledge back then wasn't great, but, you know, we had to make sure we had enough carbs, protein, the right fats, drank enough water.
Yeah.
And also we'd do things like we'd go to a running track, a racing track at Stantonbury. They've got a proper 400-metre running track. Yeah. And we'd have to do 400-metre sprints, which is really hard.
Yeah.
100-metre sprint's fine, 200 metres, 400 metres, tough.
Yes.
And we had no Fitbits, nothing like that, obviously, back then, so we'd have to go on our heart rate. So we'd do a sprint, have to get as soon as our heart rate was down to 120, we'd have to go again, and we'd do that 5 times straight off. And that was tough as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was loads of training methods that we did that was really hard. But it was good, you know.
And it obviously worked.
Yeah, definitely worked.
So you would have your run.
Yeah.
Replenish with food.
Yeah.
Back to the gym when?
Back to the gym. Training was 4 or 5 times a week. You didn't have your own gyms back then. You was
using
in a
other
room
people.
in a sports hall.
Yeah.
The floor was hard. We'd have to put the mats out, put them away at the end of each session. We had a ring. We didn't have a ring. We used to go up to Rough and Ready every weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Now that was scary. That was really scary, going up to Rough and Ready. For me, it was scary because it was full-on hard sparring.
Yeah.
And again, 9 times out of 10, I was the only girl. And a couple of times I've been carried out of the ring because I literally couldn't walk.
Sparring with the guys?
Sparring with the guys, yeah, always sparring with the guys.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, it is...
It's character building.
Yeah, very. And Rough and Ready was, I remember it back, kind of intimidating.
Yeah, because we didn't have that. To me, that was the only martial arts gym that I'd known of. I've never heard of a martial arts gym.
Yeah.
That was a dedicated martial arts gym.
To that sport, yeah.
Yeah. And it had a ring. We'd never been in a ring before, you know. So every weekend...
Just had open spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, we could, you know, we had the whole room to run around in, but we couldn't there.
Yeah.
The corners. You get trapped in the corners.
Yeah, there's no...
It sounds quite trivial now, but, you know.
Brilliant.
Not when you're not used to any of that.
That's right, yeah. So, after your gym sessions, it'd be home, food, bed.
Yeah.
And this was... How long did you spend in your camps for a fight?
6 to 8 weeks, full-on training. But to be fair, we was constantly at that. I don't understand fighters that have a fight and then don't train, or they'll only go back to training once or twice a week.
Yeah.
You know, so we'd have our fight and we'd still be training 4 or 5 times a week. Maybe we wouldn't be doing as much road work, but we'd still be training because somebody else would have a fight, so you would then be helping them to fight.
That's right, yeah.
You know, if you've just because you've had a fight, you shouldn't just stop your training, because you should be then helping your teammates.
I've never agreed with these 8 to 10 week camps. You're either ready or you're not, and I believe a camp should just be for tweaking technical work, not for fitness, not for strength. You should be there regardless anyway, as a fighter.
Yeah.
Okay, so how was your first fight? Can you remember your first fight?
I remember leading up to the first fight. I don't remember the fight itself. I don't remember nothing. That was good. That was at Bletchley Leisure Centre. And I remember the day. I don't think you can explain to somebody how much energy you need for a contact sport. But I can only use Thai boxing as an example because that's all I've done. But you can't explain to somebody how exhausting it is doing a fight unless you've done it. And it's not just the fight, it's the nervous energy before it. It's
the build-up.
It absolutely wipes you out. You know? So it was a massive shock to me, the fight. But the day of the fight, I managed to lock myself out of my flat with all my kit in there. And my flatmate was in London.
The day of the fight?
The day of the fight, yeah. So that was stressful in itself. I do remember that. So she had to come all the way back from London to open. I remember barging my door to try and break it down. But yeah, it all got sorted in the end.
And can you remember who you fought?
I don't remember her name, unfortunately.
Win or loss?
Won.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I know she was from, I think it was K-Star, which was a big...
Is that Coventry?
It's London. It's a big... was it K-Star is Coventry? I can't remember the name of the gym. My memory's gone. Been hit too many times in the head. But yeah, that was good. Do you know what the funniest thing was? The girl came back. She came to Milton Keynes a couple of years later to train and came into our class, and she didn't realise that it was our class. And she said to me then she remembers the fight and she remembers the low kicks and everything. And then we didn't see her again after that.
But it's, you know, you only get it. I think contact sports is the only sport where you get that camaraderie.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you share a ring with somebody and you're trying to kill each other.
Yeah, and then
But then you're just so solid after it.
Yeah,
maximum respect. And I think, well, that word itself, respect, is bred from contact sports, I think. You can't not respect somebody who climbs through ropes.
No.
You can't not respect someone who's sacrificed so much of their life to get to that point.
That's right, yeah. Because I think if you've been through the training, you know, you kind of think that your opponent has been through that training. They should have been anyway.
Yeah.
Through that training as well.
That's what used to get me out of my bed every morning.
Yeah, thinking that that's what they're doing.
He's getting up earlier than me.
That's right, yeah.
I better get up earlier than him. Yeah, but it's a great respect breeder, really, I think. Yeah. So your first fight went well. How did it go from there?
Well, I just thought, I can't train all these years and not put myself to the test. And then after that, because I loved it so much, I thought, oh, okay, I'll do another one. And then that's it. I just was
You're hooked
then.
Yeah.
I don't remember the first fight. I don't remember the actual fight. We were on the floor at one point and everything. I don't remember even going to the floor. But and it took about 4 fights before I remembered. Before you're calm enough to, I call it fighting intelligently, because I think the first 2 or 3 fights
it's just
remember.
instinct.
It's just instinct. And I'll always say to people that I'm training at the moment, your cardio will get you through your first few fights. That will win you your fight, your cardio, because you won't remember nothing. You need the basic skills, obviously, and that will come automatically. But you're not thinking in your first couple of fights, so you have to have the cardio.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then you start fighting intelligently, because your nerves, you know what's going on with your nerves, you know what's going on with the energy that you're using. And then you start fighting intelligently, so you can start thinking about what you're doing. You're reading your opponent. You know not to go flat out in the first couple of rounds to see what they're doing. Yeah. Read their footwork, see if they've got any weak points, you know, see if they're dropping their hand when you're doing something. And then it gets better from them. But that's where interclubs are brilliant. You know, we've got interclubs now. We never had any interclubs then.
No.
We used to go straight into these big fights, and it was scary.
Boxing's still got a bit to catch up on with the interclub kind of thing. We've only just started introducing that in the last few years, really, but it's so beneficial to fighters now.
Beneficial, because to that person, it's an interclub, but it's a fight.
It's a fight.
They're still getting into the ring in front of an audience.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still so nerve-wracking.
So beneficial.
Yeah.
So, your first fight's out the way. You've continued. You just want to challenge yourself. Yeah. At what point did you get to championship fights?
So the circuit, the female circuit, was quite small then. So there wasn't a lot of opponents that were at the level to fight, because then you start, obviously you've got amateur rules and you've got professional rules.
Yeah.
And the difference between the amateur and professional, it doesn't mean that an amateur fighter has any less ability than a pro. I'm talking about then, you've just chosen to take the head guard off, the shin guards, the elbow pads off. You know, you've just got your gloves. But fighting, trust me, taking your shin pads off in a fight is more scary than the fight.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Shin on shin, you know, you can't...
Bone against bone.
Bone against bone.
Yeah.
You tell... I remember when I very first had my first pro fight, and I wasn't worried about the fight. I was worried about my shins, you know, shin checking, because it's brutal. You can hear it. But everyone kept telling me, you can't feel it at all, because the adrenaline. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, I didn't
at the time. You can't feel it.
You can't feel it at the time. After the fight, there's a different story. But you can deal with it after the fight. Either. Yeah. But it doesn't matter how many people told me that it doesn't hurt. I didn't believe them, you know. Yeah. But anyway, I've gone off. The professional circuit, there wasn't that many female fighters doing it, but so I think I'd had about 8 fights, maybe 9.
Amateur?
No, I'd had about 4 amateur, then went into the professional, decided to take
4 fights?
Off. Yeah, 4 or 5 fights. I'd fought a lady called Michelle Newell. She is Job. I'm terrible with names. Anthony Joshua's coach, boxing coach, which is called
Sean Murphy.
There's another guy called Joby.
Down at Finchley?
I don't know. They're in Birmingham. They were in Birmingham. There's a gym called Kirkwood Walker's, Fire Walker's gym. Yeah. And the guy that owns that is called Kirkwood Walker. She fought for him. Her name's Michelle Newell, and she's married to a guy called Job. Digressing again. But anyway, I fought Michelle Newell, and her boxing was amazing. And this was an amateur fight. And we drew, and it was a proper battle. It was really good, but I'd never been hit so hard. Not in a fight, anyway. Yeah.
This was still amateur.
This was amateur.
Yeah.
And we drew, and then we decided to fight again, because I thought I can beat Michelle, even though it was the toughest fight I'd had. Yeah. And then we fought at Sanctuary, and it was, I think it was C-class rules, and we had the shin pads on still, but the rules were a bit more leaning towards professional. And we had that fight, and I wanted to take the shin pads off just to have my first professional fight, but they decided they wanted to keep them on. I know it sounds quite trivial, the shin pads, but it was a big deal.
Well, it's a mental
thing.
Yeah,
totally. But we fought again, and I won the fight, luckily. And then after that was when I went professional, because I was willing to take my shin pads off for that fight.
So at that point, what, you wanted to go pro, or?
I wanted to test myself a bit further, so I thought we'll go pro. And to be honest with you, your head guard comes off as well.
Yeah.
But the second fight with Michelle, we had no head guards anyway. That's another big deal in a fight.
Massive deal.
You're used to fighting with head guards on.
Yeah.
So then you go the next step, and then the shin pads come off. And to be honest with you, it's no different than fighting with shin pads on. When you've had it, leading up to it, you don't think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that, it's the last form of protection.
Yeah, exactly. You're hiding behind all this head guard, the shin guard.
And we've all seen the TikTok videos where legs snap and.
Do you know what? I can't watch it because I'm the most squeamish person. I've never seen anything. I've managed to avoid them.
Oh, I've seen some horrific things.
Yeah.
So you've turned pro.
Yeah.
Now we're obviously eyeing championship belts.
Yeah.
You've turned professional.
Yeah.
Was there money in the sport then?
No. So I had a British title as well. That was an amateur title. So I think on my fourth, I'm really sketchy with how many fights they were that I'd had before. My fourth or fifth, it was when I'd got the British title.
As an amateur?
As an amateur. So that was good. That was a really good stepping stone for me.
Right.
And then I got more opportunities. So then more people would, coaches were saying, wanted to match me with them.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then I'd got the chance to do the Intercontinental champion. And that was my first 5-round fight, because there'd always been 3 rounds.
Yeah.
The 5-round fights.
So how long, you've turned pro.
Yeah.
And you've got an Intercontinental fight. So how long did that take to get you there?
Not long. It was only probably a year, 2 years.
How many fights in that time?
That was about my 10th fight, that one.
As a pro?
No, in total. I think I'd had about 3 pro fights before I had the Intercontinental. I should have kept all this down as dates and everything.
It'll come out. It'll come out.
So that was a big deal, because that was 5 rounds, and I know how exhausting a 3-round fight is. Because it's full on, and I would also preferred K1 to Thai by this time. Because K1
Why?
Why? So K1 is a lot more brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Thai boxing is an art. This is how I see it. Thai boxing is an art, and it is respectful as well. K1 is more brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like really aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
So I was going back into the Thai for the 5-round fight. Yeah. I wasn't worried about the fight at that time either. Then I wasn't worried about the shin pads. I wasn't worried about getting hurt. I was worried about my cardio. So you've always got these things to worry about. Worry about gassing, because gassing in a fight is horrendous.
It's a death sentence.
I remember being in a fight once, and I think it was the Michelle Newell fight that I was talking about. And we were both absolutely exhausted. And I remember at one point looking at her telling myself to throw something, but I physically couldn't do it.
Yeah, there's no
fuel.
And
we spoke afterwards, and she said at that point she was in exactly the same place.
Yeah.
We were both just standing there.
And it's just
we were just exhausted.
It's just who wants it more then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think they're great parts of any fight. Oh, God. Because I think that shows
your heart, doesn't it?
Yeah, every single fight, there is that point where you get to where, do I want this more than him, or does she want this more than you? Yeah. And I think it's a defining part of life, really, because you get to that, I could give up here. Yeah,
you're right, yeah. And it's just whether you do or not. Yeah, one person would, another person wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's what person you are.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it dictates a lot of your life away from the sport as well.
Yeah.
With that attitude of, I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going.
Totally.
There's another round. There's another 4 or 5 rounds to come yet. So I think it's a defining moment in any fight.
Yeah.
Beautiful moments.
Yeah.
They're beautiful moments, and they're never forgotten.
Forget, no.
Yeah, they're never forgotten. Them little tiny seconds in your lifetime can define so much of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So you've got to your Intercontinental fight.
Yeah.
Where was it?
The Sanctuary.
At the
Bletchley.
Sanctuary, right.
It was home ground. The crowd was amazing.
Yeah. So you've got support back up.
Yeah.
Who did you fight for the title?
Emily Cox, I fought for the title.
Where was she from?
Terrible. She'd been training in Thailand, as far as I know. Both her coaches were Thai.
Yeah.
Where she was from, I'm not sure. Because I was always told, the reason I'm really sketchy with my opponents, I was told and trained, don't worry about your opponents. Let the coaches deal with what your opponent's good at and what they're not good at.
Yeah.
You know, internet wasn't massive then either, so everyone's fights weren't on here, there and everywhere. So it doesn't matter where they're from, what camp they're from, let the coaches have a look at that. You just train.
Love that. I love that.
So I don't really know much about my opponents. I never have done, really.
Yeah. I can remember asking my trainer, John, I can't remember what fight it was, but who have I got, John? What's he like? What's he got? 2 arms and 2 legs.
That's it, yeah.
I used to look at him and think,
yeah.
Don't you help me?
I know, yeah.
Just help me.
Yeah.
But it was...
I mean, you need to know if a person's got a weak point, but I think that's down to the coaches to do that. They need to do that research, you know.
That's their job as a coach, is to give you as much information and knowledge about... Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
You know, you need as much as you can get before you get in there. That's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to fight and to keep fit and prepare for that battle.
That's it. And to work on your weak points, not their weak points, I guess,
Yeah. So, how did the fight go?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah?
It was non-stop.
5 rounds?
5 rounds, non-stop. No
2
letter.
3-minute rounds?
I think it might have been 5-2s, but it could have been 5-3s because it was an Intercontinental champion.
Title fight,
probably
yeah.
5-3s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
It was a big night. That was a big night, that one.
So how did it go?
Yeah. It was really good. I mean, the referee was Alex Reid. Do you remember Alex Reid? Who was married to...
Yeah, it was Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was the
good
ref.
fighter.
He was good. Do you know what? Yeah, he was a good fighter, yeah.
Good fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the referee, and I got warned a couple of times for elbowing because there was no elbows in this fight.
Yeah.
It wasn't A-class. But I hadn't elbowed. I block with my elbow. So if a punch is coming, I'll block with my elbow. She kept complaining that I was elbowing, so I thought, you know, I've got to step this up a bit because I thought I might have been down on points because I've been warned a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I think I won it every round, as far as I can remember.
Brilliant.
I think it's on YouTube, so I'll have to look.
I'll have to remind myself.
I can't remember. But it was a really good fight, and it was brilliant. The feeling afterwards was brilliant.
Euphoric, yeah.
And I think if you fought to your best ability at the end of a fight, if you know that you've trained as hard as you possibly can, and you fought to the best of your ability, and you know, you've left everything in the ring. At the end of a fight, before you know a judge's decision, you got that feeling anyway because you know you've done the best that you can. If you get to the end of a fight, and I've been there knowing that you haven't trained as hard as you could, and that you could have done better in that fight, that's not a good feeling.
And it's a bad place to be, waiting for that decision.
Yeah. I've been in a fight like that before where I didn't train properly at all. I just thought I could wing it. And I lost it, and I know I could have beaten this guy, and I would have. And that was the worst feeling. It's my own fault.
There's no winging it in contact sports.
No.
There is, if there's any corners cut, if there's any shortcuts taken, you're exposed in the fight.
Yeah. Totally.
I've always been a great believer in, you know, if you do your homework correctly, your exam is an easy bit of work. It's hard on the night, but with the correct homework, the exam should be relevantly simple if you do it and execute it properly.
Yeah.
So you're now the Intercontinental 57 kilo champion, yeah?
Yeah.
Where did it go from there?
So then, from there, I had a couple more fights. I wasn't as active as I had been.
So you defended it a couple of times?
No one. I never defended that title. No one came to me to defend it. So I got a bit disheartened then, because I'd fought pretty much a few, you know, a lot of the girls that were on the scene, and I kept saying, "Oh, get me a fight abroad or something, just for the experience."
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's exciting going abroad. Why not?
Yeah.
And it just never happened. So I got a bit disheartened. I had a bit of time off, and then I started back training again. And I went for Ringmasters tournament. Have you heard of Ringmasters tournament?
No.
It's
Muay Thai?
Muay Thai tournament, yeah. And it was held at the Birmingham NEC. There was a big exhibition day, and it was held over. They had a females tournament on one day. I think the men's was on the next day, or they might have been running alongside each other. But it was the top. Ringmasters was known to be brutal.
Yeah.
And it was because you had 2 rounds to win, to go on to the next fight. So you only had 2 rounds. So you had the 2 rounds were just non-stop. And so I put myself in for the Ringmasters tournament. And it was the first female Ringmasters. It had always been male.
2 rounds?
Yeah, because you could have because it was a tournament and it was all in the same day. So if you wanted...
So how many... 2 rounds in the actual fight?
2 rounds. If you won, half hour later, you had your second fight.
Oh, okay, like the ABAs, like the old ABAs, where you could have 3 fights on the night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what this was. But it was the top girls that went in for it.
Yeah.
So I did that one. That was in 2009. And I won it was a 57 kilo fight, and I was 57 kilos, because it was on the day weigh-in.
Yeah.
So I weighed in, and it come up 59 kilos or something. So I had to keep skipping, had all this towel round, sweatsuit on, I had to lose weight, I had to cut the weight. I managed to get down to 57. It was really hard to get down to 57 because I'd already cut and got down to 57. I'm sure the scales were wrong because I remember everyone getting on the scales and it was everyone was skipping, Anyway, it was what it was. So then we had our names get pulled out of the hat, and I was fighting 15 minutes after I'd made the weight. So I didn't have the time to rehydrate or food or anything.
Wow.
So I did that first fight. That was really tough.
Got through it, won?
Well, it was a draw after the 2 rounds. So if it was a draw, you had to do a 3rd round. So it was a draw, did a 3rd round, won that round.
Lovely.
So, but I was exhausted because I'd made the weight, and I was kind of in my head thinking, I'm done now, I don't mind. I don't mind if I don't win this. I won the round, and then I got told to get ready for the next fight because that would be happening in 45 minutes or something. So I managed to drink, get some electrolytes in me. And then I had a second fight, and that was 2 rounds, and that was a draw. So then I had a 3rd round.
Oh, you couldn't write this.
I know, and I was absolutely exhausted. And Lee was quite brutal in the corner, and I remember him saying to me, if you win this, I don't know how you've won this 3rd round. I won the 3rd round. So then I was in the final. And the girl that was in the final had got a bye, but she was brilliant. Hayley Jane Clarkson, her name is, and she's a very good Thai boxer. So I was thinking, how the hell am I going to do this?
Please don't go another 3 rounds.
But she'd got a bye, so she'd only had 1 fight.
Ah, she's full of energy.
This is the case,
yeah,
from what I recall. So we had a fight, and it was a really good fight. And the final was 3 rounds. So we had a brilliant final, and just on the bell, I got dropped.
Ah, final bell.
Final bell. So I lost the final, but I was so pleased with myself because I got to that.
You got there. You achieved.
That stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the case that we were talking about earlier about weight cutting.
Yeah.
So I'd had the fight. I calmed down a bit. My face was black. I had 2 black eyes, big fat nose. My lip was out here. And I sat down about a half hour after I'd started to chill out. My adrenaline had come down a bit, and then all of a sudden I'd lost sight in my eye.
Yeah.
And it was the dehydration on the brain from not rehydrating properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so that scared me a bit because I'd suffered years before. I spoke to you earlier about panic attacks and anxiety. And that just freaked me out completely. And I lost sight. It was for about an hour. Completely didn't see anything out of that eye. And then after that, after the ringmasters...
Did you go to the hospital?
No, because it started to come back, and I probably should have done.
Yeah.
To be fair, because it was probably the toughest day of my life, to be fair.
Yeah. Scary.
Yeah.
Your sight is...
Yeah. I mean, the fights and everything was the toughest day.
Yeah.
But I was okay after a while anyway. But I'd started to calm the fighting down a bit, and then I was into the training more, training other people more.
Yeah.
I was coaching a bit. I was teaching more classes.
Yeah.
So then I think I'd done another two. I did 2010 Ringmasters. I think I won the first one, lost the second. And then that was basically after that. I think I'd had a couple more fights after that. And then just carried on in the training and the coaching.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And you're still coaching to this day?
Still coaching.
So you're head coach up at BST.
Head female coach.
Head female coach.
Yeah.
You must have some good stories from sparring, and you must have sparred with some good level girls.
Yeah, well, mainly guys, to be fair. I didn't really spar with many girls. I didn't.
And there's some good guys at BST.
Oh, yeah.
There's some good lads up there.
Chantal Cameron?
Yeah, I know Chantal, yeah.
Well, Chantal was, when she was 16, she went from full contact. She wanted to do a bit of Thai boxing. So then she came over to our club.
She was world champion kickboxer as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, so we went to... so she was brilliant to spar with.
Yeah.
She's a proper fighter. She's a fighter at heart,
Yeah.
I think whatever discipline you give her, she'll be good at. So she was a good sparring partner, back then. But she went on to win the World Thai Boxing Championships in America as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went over. I thought, do you know what? I think she can win this. So I entered her in for it, and she went over. And I got good. It was good to do the coaching side of it. Then. Yeah. It was rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it can be more so rewarding than actually fighting.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely. The coaching side of things does give you massive, just euphoric.
Yeah.
But emotional.
Definitely emotional.
Emotional waves, what go over you are crazy.
Being
as a
in
coach.
Someone's corner that you've coached.
Taken from the beginning, yeah.
It's hard, isn't it?
Very hard, especially when you see him get hit.
Yeah.
I used to...
Just the nerves, being in a corner, sometimes harder than fighting.
Yeah. Well, you've got to plan that next round in a minute.
Yeah.
You've only got a minute with your fighter. You've got 1 minute.
Yeah.
If you need to change your game plan, you need to instruct, and just know that that's the best instruction you could have given your fighter.
Yeah.
And that has to be decided in seconds.
Yeah.
But it's
stressful.
A little bit stressful, a little bit stressful. So, your current lifestyle now, you're a trainer up at BST. You got any good fighters coming through up there?
Yeah, we've got some great fighters. We've got Jordan Vucenic, who is current Cage Warriors world champion.
Yeah.
He's got a big fight coming up with Paul Hughes, which is his second fight. And then I believe Jordan will be going to the UFC. He deserves it.
Yeah.
Tom Mearns, I love watching Tom. He's had some tough fights. He's another Cage Warriors fight, but his fights are brilliant. I love watching his fights. There's some good younger fighters coming up. We've got Asan that's coming up. There are some really good guys that are coming through BST. And there's a female fighter, Hayley Valentine. She's definitely one to watch.
Exciting.
She's just had a good fight in Ireland. She fought Catherine. Again, the name escapes me. But she's the girl that she fought is quite a veteran in MMA, and Kaylee was the underdog completely, and she won that one.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
and these are under your tuition?
No, they're not under mine. I mean, I'm going more into the strength and conditioning side now.
Yeah.
So all the coaches work together. We're all part of a big team. We're all one family, really.
Yeah, brilliant. That's how a gym should be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I've got injuries. I'm waiting for shoulder surgery. I've got bad hip that I'm waiting for some treatment on. So holding the pads for me at the minute is pretty tough. I'll still do it, but I'm not. Don't tell my physio people that I'm still doing it.
Can we cut this out?
I'm a surgeon. But I'm trying to get away from the pad work, but I'm going into the strength and conditioning side. So, like trying to get the hill runs and what we went through back in the day, all the treks. So we're doing some brutal circuits. I've got a good team at the minute of two. I've got 2 teams of fighters that train one on a Thursday, one on a Friday. And their conditioning and everything's brilliant. I mean, 2 of the guys, we've got Jefferson George, Tom Lancaster, Thai boxing. They're brilliant. They're ones. I mean, Jeff's got some great fights behind him.
Yeah.
Tom's a good up and coming fighter. He's brilliant. But they're both their last fights. They said they've never felt so strong from doing the strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. That's the side that I want to get into now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do the circuits yourself, don't you?
All the time. Yeah.
And I just think that is just the strength and conditioning is such a key part.
Massive part.
Yeah.
And I think with the science and the knowledge now, we're so much more.
Yeah.
We can prepare so much better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these guys are athletes.
Yeah.
They're putting themselves into an arena, as it were, to fight each other. Got to be at peak performance.
Definitely. And it's an arena where injuries, potential life-threatening injuries can occur. So I think, with the strength and conditioning side of things now, what's coming through, it just gives them a little edge. Yeah. And, I really enjoy the S&C.
I see guys fighting, some of the fighters, I don't just mean from our gym or anything, but they train in the classes, they do the sparring, they do the rolling, they do the pad work, and then they'll go and do a run, and that's their road work, but that's not enough.
No.
It's not enough.
No, wrong time. Yeah. Wrong time.
But I think
well.
that's just education. They need to know what sort of training to do. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you're working up there at BST daily?
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Sunday.
Brilliant.
Sunday off. But I also work in a film studio twice a week.
Brilliant.
Just started doing that. Yeah, because my background is photography assisting.
Yeah.
As a job.
Brilliant.
But I stopped doing that for about 6 years because I moved to Northampton in 2015, and then a day later I started work at BST. So that was 6 years ago, nearly 7 years ago.
So not long looking for work, and you've landed at a great gym.
Yeah. But I knew Danny Batten, he was working there. I was training at BST anyway before I worked there.
Yeah.
So I was travelling up,
it just fell into place.
Yeah. Never looked back. Yeah, I love it. It's great. It's great gym. Academy. Gym.
Yeah.
An academy.
Yeah. At the minute, we're going through a pandemic with this COVID. But I believe we're suffering another pandemic, and have been for a long time now, with knife crime and.
Oh yeah.
These
it's
kids.
Terrible.
It doesn't seem to be getting any better at the minute.
No.
As a coach, you'll be looked up to by a lot of people. You will be not just a coach but a mentor.
Yeah.
What can you, as a community, I've spoke to a few other coaches in Northampton. As a community, what do you think could give or make a change to some of these kids? Listen, there's some great kids out there.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of kids what haven't got what certain other kids have got, and they're struggling or they're going through a phase in their life. Maybe their mum and dad are breaking up, and they're just lost at that point in their life. As a community, do you think there's enough in Northampton at the present, and do you think we could do more? As a contact sport community, do you think we could do more? How can we do more?
So, we're working with the early intervention team with the police for the young kids, and I think Northampton in itself is really doing quite well with the service that it's providing, but I don't think that the kids know about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the problem is that it's there. We've got all our facilities. I'm just using BST as an example.
Yeah.
You've got the Frank Bruno Academy. There's
Yeah.
all different places in Northampton, and I'm sure there's other places that are doing the same, that offer all this support. We've got, I mean, we can have the kids coming into the gym, and we have them come into the gym, but we have like 3 or 4 at a time, and we've got the capacity for 30.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 30 at a time, and we could do 5 of those sessions a week.
Yeah.
But the kids don't know about it. So the police are trying to do what they can with going into the schools. Early intervention is where a child has been flagged up at school as being vulnerable. They could be seen to be going down the wrong path.
Just approaching a crossroads.
Influences around them. Maybe they've not got the right support network at home. And it's finding these children and then the right people leading them into the support that we can give them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem is at the moment, is getting the kids to the gym, to
A
the
to B,
academy,
yeah.
from A to B. Yeah, because it's there.
So advertising.
Just making the parents aware, making the school aware that this is available to them.
Yeah.
You know, the police are always going to be some sort of, you know,
And
people don't want to approach the police, do they?
no, well, there's always that stigma with these, especially
But
the
it's
younger.
not the police. There's another team that are working with the police.
Yeah.
The early intervention. I know they are the police, but they're not going to go out and arrest you.
No.
They're trying to help you. That's what it is.
All they're doing is offering their hand.
Yeah.
We spoke about Den Earler, Den Palmer. He's doing a great thing over in Corby where he gives the kids free classes.
Yeah. These are all free. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that in itself is just an amazing, you know, to give, because a lot of these kids have nothing, their parents have nothing.
Right. And that's it. Yeah.
But to get them into a contact sport, I think at that age and time of their life when they're just either going to make the right choice or the wrong choice, I think that is going to be the way forward, you know, just giving them 1 hour free a week or...
Absolutely,
you know,
it's fundamental to them.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a good thing for them. I know this sounds a bit cheesy, but it's quite a cool thing for them to do.
Ah.
You know, they're going to a boxing gym,
Yeah.
they're going to a martial arts gym. It's not something that they're going to be embarrassed about.
No,
doing
and it's
or saying to
something...
their mates, that's what
yeah,
they're doing.
yeah, I was just going to say, it's something they can go back to their mates...
And brag about.
And brag about and be proud of bragging
That's what
about
it's about,
something
isn't it?
rather than
being embarrassed about it.
you know, I don't want to talk about this or I don't want to talk about that, I don't want to go there, I've just been to a boxing, Muay Thai gym, kickboxing, whatever.
Something they're proud of doing.
And they will, you know, it can only make them proud because they know they've done something positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest lack in their life now is just positive surroundings and
support.
Support. But
there was a young lad. This is just an example, and I thought it was quite sad, really. But there was a young lad that was brought to us from the early intervention, and he was only 13, and he had a tag on, and I thought that's a young age to have a tag on. Wow. But when I got to know him and ask him I didn't ask him what his story was. He came, he opened up a bit. He'd asked to have the tag put on because he had recognised that the only friends that he was with that were around him were starting to go down the wrong path. And he'd asked to have the tag on, so it gave him an excuse
not to go down with them.
Go down that path. He'd say, I can't come out, I've got a tag on.
Ah, what a cool guy.
Yeah. So he came into but he was having trouble at school. And the early intervention team brought him to us, and he's now in the gym every single day. He's got a little job there as well.
Oh, what a cool guy!
Yeah, he's brilliant, and he's competed as well.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, he's
brilliant.
That's a brilliant.
That's a success story.
Yeah.
You know, and even just one is a success.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Fair play to him. Yeah, I hope he does ever so well.
Yeah, he's
ever so well. Yeah.
I won't name him, obviously.
No, that's brilliant. I think that's that's a kind of made my day.
And I genuinely think he's one to watch as well because he's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. So, there's a lot we could offer, through gyms. I'm up at Abington Amateur Boxing.
Yeah.
We're just doing something now with the social services. I think
it's about reaching out to these
definitely
places and just letting people know that this is open to
definitely
them, and it's free. We were even talking about getting, because you said earlier about some people haven't got the money to even get to these places.
Yeah.
That we were I know BST are trying to get a minibus together so that we can go around to the areas and get the kids to bring them in, so then they can actually get there.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But it's just having the right. It's just knowing that this is out there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy now, I think. It's probably easy for me to say because I haven't got kids, but sometimes it's easy for kids to just go and sit on an Xbox or...
Well, this is what's happening with society, I think, now.
You're not worried about them, are you? Or...
Yeah, and I think the parents have a lot to answer for there.
Yeah.
They definitely have a lot to answer for, rather than, giving them a lift to a gym or walking them to a gym, or they'd rather let them sit on an Xbox. And it's I think it's just a travesty, an absolute travesty. But
the knife crime is horrendous, isn't it?
It's
very scary.
It's sickening.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
They're so young.
Yeah, so scary, and they've got so much potential. These kids, they don't even realise what they've got and what they can have if they just put a little bit of the discipline, a little bit of the commitment.
Yeah.
They're up and running.
Yeah, that's it. It's just seeing what else is out there, isn't it?
Yeah, and...
They just seem to have such little regard for life now,
What cost is life?
Even their own life.
That's right.
If they take someone's life, their life's gone.
Their life's ruined.
Yeah.
It's not just the victim, it's the perpetrator's family, it's himself, it's...
Massive.
The domino effect through it all.
Yes,
yeah.
huge.
It's crazy, but I think... we're going to start making inroads to these kids, really, I think, over the next few years, especially in Northampton, where I think, I spoke to Greg a few weeks ago down at an evening, and I think we're all on the same song sheet at the minute. So if we can all kind of gel together, just even if it's...
What, Greg at the gym?
Yeah, BST. Even if it's... I've spoke to Den, I've spoke to Danny Berwick over in Rushden, I've spoke to a few lads in the surrounding areas in Northampton, even if we get a charity event on, and...
Greg's very, he's very community orientated.
Massively, he's really, great like that.
Yeah, really trying to help. He's always trying to put something on for the kids and everything. Yeah,
what we've spoke about, me, Den, Danny, is like a multi-discipline fight show.
Yeah.
There could be a bit of K1, a bit of Muay Thai, a bit of boxing.
Then, haven't they?
Yeah, and it will just give the audience as well a bit of choice.
Yeah.
And, how proud would a parent be knowing that their kid was really on the cusp of going down the wrong road, and now he's got the balls or the bravery to get in. And the discipline.
The discipline is massive.
Yeah.
And the respect as well, because a lot of these kids haven't got respect. Because there's no consequences to their actions anymore.
Nothing at all. No. Nothing at all.
So the respect is not there. So once they start coming into these disciplined sports, that's when the respect starts to come.
Yeah. I think that's been a brilliant pod.
God.
That's been a brilliant pod. No, that's been a really good pod.
When I start talking, I don't stop.
No.
Sometimes I'm thinking, stop talking.
No, that's brilliant. That's been an absolutely banging pod. Claire Reilly. Lovely. Thank you.
No worries, thank you.
Before you finish, just like to say thank you to our sponsors, Tripod Crest, Planing and Tarmac Limited, for all the support they give us for the podcast. Thank you.